Good afternoon. The tornado siren has sounded, which means it's time for CMC. Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. CMC explores public policy issues, current events, and lessons in leadership at forums just like this one every week. My name is Josh Harrison, President of Improving. I'm also proud to serve as the current Vice Chair of CMC's Board of Trustees. For those of you joining us by live stream, we're coming to you from our home in Columbus's historic Italian village, the Ellis. If you scan your QR codes at your tables, you'll see many organizations that support your not-for-profit Columbus Metropolitan Club. Speaking of fantastic supporters, we would like to thank the sponsors of today's forum, COTA, the Robert Weiler Company, and HNTB. Let's give them a round of applause. And thank you to our host, the Ellis, for the generous support for today's program. We're also grateful to the presenting sponsors of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and to our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch. Yes, every CMC forum takes a village. Let's thank everyone supporting today's forum. And welcome to today's forum, Columbus's $8 billion transit investment. Will LinkUS build a better commute? This November, Columbus voters may be asked to approve a 0.5% sales tax increase to generate $6 billion of the estimated $8 billion cost of the long-term transit improvement project known as LinkUS. LinkUS will better connect parts of Columbus through transit improvements that include new bus rapid transit, corridors, plus infrastructure improvements for pedestrians that include trails and sidewalks. If voters approve, work would begin as early as next year. Will Columbus voters see the value of investing in LinkUS to give Columbus new mobility options that could serve as models for the region? We are thrilled to welcome today's panelists, the Honorable Shannon Hardin, President of Columbus City Council, William Murdock, Executive Director of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, Stevie Pasamonte, Chair of Transit Columbus, Monica Tellez-Fowler, Deputy Chief Executive Officer of COTA, and our host today, Curtis Jackson, evening anchor with Spectrum News 1. But to set the stage for our panel conversation, we are honored to welcome back to CMC for the second week in a row, the Honorable Andrew J. Ginther, Mayor of the great city of Columbus. Mayor, welcome back to CMC. The podium is yours.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Good afternoon. What a great day here in the city of Columbus. I know it is raining and gray out there, but we've got some really exciting things to talk about here today, and just really appreciate the Metropolitan Club staff and board, William Murdock and MORPC, Transit Columbus, the great leader of our city council, President Shannon Hardin. I don't think there's a bigger transit advocate in Central Ohio than President Hardin. Thrilled for his leadership. COTA, our partners in Franklin County. We were here just a week ago talking about downtown's next big transformation, the Capitol Line project. But you may have heard me say that the Capitol Line can only be fully realized if we're successful in passing and implementing the LinkUS ballot initiative this fall. This is my number one priority for this year, is engaging this community in a conversation about our past, our present, and most importantly, our future. And I'm asking everyone here in the room today to lean in, to lift up this conversation, why this is the right time for us to invest in ourselves, our kids, and our grandkids. That's because this is going to be a real game changer for our community. LinkUS is Central Ohio's comprehensive transportation plan to address growth, affordability, and opportunity gaps throughout Columbus and the entire region. It's great to see friends from Dublin and other places around Central Ohio, because they all know how important this issue is, not just to the city, but to our suburban areas, to all of the region. It's a plan for a more equitable and connected region for all who live and work here. It's a collaboration amongst the city, COTA, MORPC, and Franklin County. Columbus and Central Ohio as a region are growing rapidly, and the pace of our growth is accelerating. We're on track to increase by nearly 1 million people over the next 25 years. That means over 3 million residents in Central Ohio, calling Central Ohio home by 2050. And based on recent developments, it may happen faster than that. For decades, our growth and development have been designed around vehicles with a car-centric transportation system. And as we prepare to welcome 1 million more people to our region, we can't build infrastructure fast enough to accommodate 1 million more cars. 80% of the vehicles on our roads in Central Ohio today still have only one person in them. That's not sustainable for much of our region today, and it's certainly not going to be sustainable for a region that grows by a third. We want growth to be inclusive. We don't just want to be bigger, we want to be better. That has to ensure that no one's opportunity is limited by their transportation or lack thereof. LinkUS will create a transportation and mobility system that allows people to experience connectivity and to be part of neighborhoods that are walkable with bike trails and greenways. LinkUS rapid transit lines along our major growth corridors will reduce household transportation costs and create greater access to housing that's affordable, expanding on the city's $250 million investment in affordable housing. This is why it's so important. Since 2020, the median home sale price in Franklin County has increased by 45%. The average Franklin County household spends more than $12,700 a year on transportation. And at least 40,000 of our households lack access to a personal vehicle. And 1/3 of Franklin County residents live in areas of low or very low opportunity. In a transportation system that's largely centered around cars, households have limited choices for how to get around, the things that matter most: jobs, education, healthcare, childcare, grocery stores, and other vital daily services. And our neighbors are feeling the squeeze. Cities like Minneapolis that have invested more in transit, bike, and pedestrian infrastructure have lower transportation costs than Columbus. So this is also about competitiveness as we grow and as we continue to grow our economy. LinkUS will be purposeful and intentional about addressing opportunity gaps right here in our community. It will help us address housing affordability and workforce gaps in our region. It will create a faster and more reliable transportation system for our residents. And it will build more sidewalks and bike paths that create equitable and affordable connectivity for all of our families. One example: the city's Linden Green Line initiative, a 7-mile corridor along an abandoned railway from the north side through Linden to near downtown. This 58-acre park and trail will be accessible to more than 131,000 people who live within minutes of walking and biking distance, demonstrating how active transportation can bring about equitable access. Access made possible by the successful passage of the LinkUS initiative this fall. Many other Columbus neighborhoods and communities stand to benefit as well. It will add more than 50 miles of bus rapid transit to our region within the COTA service area. That includes all of Franklin County and portions of Delaware, Fairfield, Licking, and Union counties. 17 cities, 9 villages, and 17 townships. The ongoing efforts of our working groups will ensure that LinkUS benefits all of our partners across the region. But we can't do this without the community, without all of you. We need you to show up at the ballot box this November and make your voices heard. This is a time for us to invest ourselves and our future. The time for LinkUS is now, and I'll keep saying it. This will be a game changer for Central Ohio. Thank you all for being here today. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to our MC, Curtis Jackson.
Afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. This is a very important topic with a lot of interesting aspects to it, so let's get started right away. I'm going to start with the first question, and we'll just go down the line. What is LinkUS to you?
Well, thank you, Curtis. It is an honor to be here with all of us to talk about what the mayor said is his top priority, and I think that that's really exciting. And the question is that we will all have to answer is, will this be all of our top priority? We are at an inflection point in our city's history where we used to ask a question around growth. Will it happen? Will it come for us? For all of us folks who've grown up in this city, we've always wanted to be the bigger cousin, the bigger brother. That question has answered itself now. Growth is coming to Columbus. To the mayor's point, the question now is, can we grow and make ourselves a better community as well? Can we attract and bring in those million people and make that good for the quality of life for all of us? So what LinkUS is our community, and it's not just our cities, our region's response to a fully comprehensive growth strategy that makes sure that those million folks that are coming in, and 80% of them that are single occupancy vehicles, 800,000 more cars on the streets, that we can get around and that we can get to our jobs more effectively, that we can have dignity in getting to work. My colleague, Councilmember Barosa de Padilla, who chairs our Public Service and Transportation Committee, always talks about transportation and housing, and these things are about people at the end of the day. And there has to be dignity when you leave your house in the morning as a single mother and you take your child to daycare and then you need to get to work and then your child gets sick in the middle of the day, you need to get back home or get back to the daycare to get your child. LinkUS helps bring dignity to how we move around. It also helps us solve our housing issue. We can't add all of these folks to our community and keep affordability in our city. So it helps us bring folks closer to each other and allows us to move around better. And it also helps us solve sustainability. You can't add 800,000 cars to the community and not have a negative impact to the community. So this will be our community's response to growth. This is something that will help us move forward. And the bigger question is not if we should do it, should we do it now, but we have too many examples around the country of communities who saw growth coming and didn't respond to it. Austin, Nashville, where they saw this wave of growth coming and they stuck their heads in the sand. Sometimes I make it the analogy that it's like a tsunami coming. We have a tsunami of growth, people that are coming to our community. That wave of people, if we don't plan for it, if we're not thoughtful, could be the thing that could wipe folks out. Or if we do the hard thing, if we do the work right now, it could be the thing that lifts all boats and allows this thing to be good for all of us. That's what LinkUS does. It allows us to manage growth and make it good for all of us.
Councilman Hardin, thank you. Mr. Murdock, why is this important to the region?
Yeah, thanks everybody. It's an honor to be here. And if my voice squeaks, I'm suffering from a little bit of vocal strain. What you heard from the council president is the enthusiasm I have, and I've been screaming at the top of the rooftops about it. So bear with me if I squeak. Curtis, to your question, this is a really urgent moment for the region. I'll say it again. Councilperson said it, mayor said it. We want to grow better as we get bigger. And when we're looking at population growth, we want to make sure that we're putting the improvements in place that bring everybody along, that connect housing to transportation, that give us the options that we don't have in this community. We are the largest region in the country that doesn't have intense mass transit. When you think about our growth, when you think about what it means to live in the Columbus region, having access to better ways to get around is such an important part of our story and of where we want to be heading. I think it's important too, this is of course a Columbus initiative, but many other communities, suburbs, townships are engaged in this. This is something that we know that can lift up the whole area of the whole core of our region, whether it's transit, whether it's mass transit, and we'll talk a little bit about it, whether it's sidewalks, bike trails, even bus shelters. LinkUS is really comprehensively thinking about more than just one line. It's about how to lift up the whole community, the whole core of the region, community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, to really make our growth improve our quality of life, and we're excited about it.
Stevie, what are the elements of LinkUS that voters in Central Ohioans should be aware of?
I think there are a couple of different answers to this. You have the sort of physical elements of it. You have bus rapid transit, which may be a new concept to a lot of people. It's sort of like light rail, but on wheels. And then you have all of the things that connect us to that transit. And to go back to what we were saying before, I think LinkUS is about access. It is about access to one another. It is about access to our jobs and our families and our community. And it's about access to a better future. And every part of LinkUS, from the infrastructure around it, the expanded protected bike lanes, sidewalks, pedestrian infrastructure, that makes Columbus just a more pleasant place to be, is giving everyone access to things that they may not have had before or may not have wanted access to before, like the built environment around them. If you are living in a car-centric sort of space where cars are the things that are being prioritized, people are not being prioritized. And so you walk out to, you don't want to walk outside and see a giant asphalt parking lot or a 4-lane road. You want to see your community, and you want that community to be built around you, around people. And so that is one of the things that LinkUS is trying to do. It's so much more than just a rapid transit system. It is a complete, I'm going to steal a term from Harvey Miller, who's in the room right now. It is the baseline to a sort of mobility polyculture, right? Where, you can use a car, or you can use anything else. You can walk, you can ride, you can use a mobility device, you can use a scooter, to the point where, it's not that we're here like we need to get rid of cars, it's we need to make cars irrelevant. We need to make cars the thing that is not our default, and every aspect of LinkUS does that.
Monica, a big part of this is bus rapid transit, or BRT. We're going to talk a lot about that this afternoon. Where are we in the process of bringing that to the region? I'm going to give you a two-parter too. And how do you determine the corridors or the routes that would be first as a part of the LinkUS system?
Thank you, Curtis. You obviously took William's comments about giving me the hardest questions seriously, but no. We are currently, we're planning for at least 5 bus rapid transit corridors, with 3 of them already in design. That's the West Broad Corridor, the East Main Corridor, and the Northwest Corridor. And the plans are that the West Broad Corridor is further along. The plans are that we would break ground in 2025, so that's just around the corner, and that we would be operational in 2028, with East Main following soon after, and then Northwest soon after that. So we have started that planning quite a long time ago, and this is where we are. So we're kind of at the point where we're ready to move on this. How the corridors have been determined has been a collaboration, and it really came from studies. MORPC's 2050 Insight Corridor study, and COTA had a next-gen plan. We used those plans along with, a lot of external communication, outreach, feedback that we received from community partners to really determine those corridors. And so that's how we're going to continue to make those corridors, that we're going to determine what the community needs by hearing what you have to say about that.
Can we talk dollars and cents real quick? How much are we talking about here?
Yeah, so it is an $8 billion project overall through 2050. The sales tax increase will provide that. What I will say is that when we say bus rapid transit, that's not the full cost of that. The $8 billion projects is a lot of what Council President Hardin and President Murdock were saying and referring to. That is the sidewalks. That includes the bike trails that Stevie kind of put out there. The trails, we're talking about significant trails. And that's 500 plus miles of additional transit infrastructure. So it's not just putting that service out there. It also allows us to really increase our current service, transit service. So that would be increased by 45%. That's a significant increase.
Councilman, yeah, go ahead, please.
I think it's important, one, we're talking about $8 billion of investment over 50 years. What we're asking, what we would be asking the community for is $6 billion of that. Why time is imperative is because what we're also asking is for the federal government to send some of our dollars back here. We all saw when President Biden passed the bipartisan infrastructure deal, that put money out on the streets for communities all across the country. Other communities have been pulling those dollars down each year. We need our matching dollars to come back to Columbus, almost to a tune of $500 or $600 million that we would bring back to Columbus if we pass this levy. This is really important too when we talk about the increase. What we're really doing is catching up. We're catching up to to Cleveland, and we're catching up to Cincinnati, who have, if we were to pass our levy, we would just be coming in line with Cleveland, Cincinnati. So I think it's really important as we think about dollars and cents that this is really our investment. This is our chance to step up, get ahead of the growth that's coming.
Steve, you want to add something?
I think also it's important to put, it sounds like a lot of money, but think about this in the context of how much money we spend on roads, how much money we spend on expanding highways, how much money we spend for personal vehicles that transport one person at a time most of the time, and just how much more efficient it is to use these dollars to not only transport more people, but build that community, build so much more than just a means of getting from point A to point B.
I want to ask you very quickly, because this might be a bit of a tough sell to taxpayers, especially given the fact that we've seen inflation affecting everything from grocery prices to the prices that we pay at the pump. How do you sell this message about looking ahead to the future, given what people are experiencing in the present?
Well, I think because people are already struggling. They're struggling to get to work and then get back home. They're struggling to find affordable housing right now. And so when we talk about this being our community's plan for growth, it is about mitigating some of those impacts. It's about quality of life. It's about explaining the benefits to everybody, regardless of where you are, not just in Columbus, but throughout the region. It's about saying that if you believe in or care about health and wellness of your community and or of your family, and want to take a walk, having more bike lanes. If you want to get to work, it's about getting to having the transportation to get there. I think it's really about pointing to other communities that have not done this and the impacts that has had on their communities going forward.
William, you want to add something? Stevie, I'll come back to you.
I think the council president hit it on its head. For a little bit more, not to negate how much it is, we can significantly make it easier for people to get to jobs, to get to childcare, to get access to housing, to move around their community. Stevie brought up a good point. When we look at the cost of things, there's a significant amount of money that we invest in highways and roads, which we have to do as part of a region. This is just part of having a system, and making this investment really gives people options, especially options they don't have right now.
Stevie, as you add to that, what about people who do not live along these corridors? What sort of interest should they have in this?
I think, again, part of what this does is obviously all of the what we call transit supportive infrastructure is a word that you'll hear us throw around a lot probably. But those are all of the things that connect folks to to bus rapid transit, to those corridors that we're talking about, plus the extended service that COTA is providing as a part of this, right? So this money is not just going toward future services, it's going toward expanding existing services that folks need. Just to go back a little bit to the cost of this, how many people in here have a car payment? Raise your hands. Yeah, it's a pretty significant chunk of money, and that's for folks in this room. So imagine being someone who makes $10 an hour and trying to maintain that. Maybe you have a car, maybe it runs technically, and maybe you're sinking money into that over and over and over again because you have no other option. You don't have a choice. There are so many people in this city who do not have a choice but to use public transit. And those people should have every opportunity that every one of us in this room have, right? And so that, thank you. And so we're not just doing it for greater accessibility for all of us, but for the people who are already using the transit system. It should already be good enough for them, and it's not. And that's not just including the buses, which of course, we have many challenges to getting that, operator shortages and things like that. So what we need in order to support that growth is more investment in this, and we see that coming from the city. We see that time and that energy and that money that's being invested. And so we need the support of people to ask for more of that, not just from the city, but from the state, from the federal level. There's so much money right now that is coming down from the federal government, and we should be using that to create that access. And I mean, not to be trite, but LinkUS is the name. That's what we're doing. We're linking people. And I think that above all, plays into the cost of everything.
Monica?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think some of what Stevie was touching on that, maybe isn't as plainly said is something that Council President Hardin said was it's sustainability. How does it impact other places? Those people are coming here regardless. We will have that congestion, and if we expect for that to be one car per person, you can understand, or one car even per household, you can understand what that does to our environment, right? And so we don't want that type of kind of an LA type sky, right? We're not looking for that. So this is one of those answers. The other thing is really, it's about safety. Because if we think that the only people who are getting around in this community, in this region, are doing it by car or bus, we're wrong. And we're not helping them. So we need to do it in a safe way where it's built into the larger transportation system of the region. And LinkUS will do that for us.
Let's assume, Monica, that this whole thing works out. How do you avoid BRT creep? In other words, the chipping away of some of the features that will give BRT all of its advantages?
How do you avoid that? Well, I think that's built into the program itself. It has dedicated lanes, so it allows it, so you're not traveling at the same pace as a normal single occupancy vehicle. It allows for onboarding that is very similar to light rail. I think, Stevie, you kind of made that comparison. It is very much like light rail on wheels. Off-board fare systems, accessibility. It doesn't chip away because it's been planned in a manner that will allow it to be more efficient and fast.
Stevie, you want to add something?
I know that everyone here is dedicated to avoiding BRT creep, which again is part of the benefits of bus rapid transit are those things like dedicated lanes. But I think we're also already seeing that before we're even getting this thing off the ground. So I understand that one of the corridors on East Main is going through Bexley, and I understand that the city of Bexley refuses to have a dedicated lane. And so when you take one small part of that system and you slow it down, you're slowing the entire thing down, right? And so I think, this necessarily has to be a collaborative effort, right? This is a regional effort. This is something that is not just affecting Columbus, it's affecting everyone in the region. And so everyone has to be on board. Everyone has to be a team player. And And if it's your neighborhood, your city, your region that is not playing ball, I think it's up to all of us to make sure that that happens.
William, the state of Indiana has pushed back against Indianapolis with its dedicated bus lanes. Are you concerned that a similar occurrence could happen here?
So if you're not familiar, in Indiana, they're talking about making dedicated lanes something that cities can't do. I think it's always important to look examples around the country and make sure we're thinking about how it applies here so that we're building a case, whether it's through community groups or advocates, state legislators, the business community. We know the benefits of this. We've seen it in other places. If you go to Cleveland is a great example. One of their BRT lines has created billions of dollars of investment, 13,000 jobs. Indianapolis has seen the same thing. We need to make sure that we continue to deliver that message, focus on the benefits of where this is going.
Councilman, I want to ask you this. If you've seen my promo, you know that I cycle. You can see me ride my bike, rather comically, I might add. But one thing that always intrigues me when we have these conversations is transit supportive infrastructure, the sidewalks, the bike lanes. Why is this such an important part, you think, of this overall package?
Well, Stevie has been really killing it when she talks about making choice for everyone. So regardless if it's you who want to use bike to get around recreationally or someone who uses bikes like Harvey Miller does to get around to work and to play and to do the things that it takes to live his life, we need to make sure that we have those safe options for all of our residents. And so the transit infrastructure that will be built again throughout the entire system is a way that connect everyone to make sure that all of us are linked into a system so that you can live, work, and play right here in a safe way in our community. One of the things I did want to hit on the BRT conversation, so much of what we are doing is us trying to be smart and get ahead of the curve. So many folks, when they see growth coming, they build one light rail line, and it costs billions of dollars. And what it ends up doing is connecting folks who really didn't need the connection, but they like to get on the light rail. And then what it does to everybody else is pisses everybody else off because we need to get around, we need to get to work, we need to get to the grocery store, and you got that one line that we all paid $3 billion for, and how does that serve me? What we have done, coming together as a community, is say, because this growth is coming, and because it's coming at this pace, we need to build the whole system all at the same time. Bus rapid transit allows us to do that in a more efficient way, all at the same time. We're talking about 3 corridors, 5 corridors, all at the same time, in a way that will save us money, connect folks, be able to move folks at the same pace as light rail and other types, because you have the on-level boarding, because you have the dedicated lanes. And I would also, I am encouraged by the work that we're doing with the state government. We have a Department of Transportation led by Director Marchbanks, who is connected to the work that we're doing, has been a part of those conversations, who understands the impacts that LinkUS will bring, not just to Columbus, but to our region. And I'm also grateful for the coordination that has happened amongst our different regional partners. I mean, Reynoldsburg, Whitehall have been at the table along the way. They understand that growth is not just happening to Columbus, it's happening to all of us, and they're all on board.
William, what do you think about that regional cooperation?
Well, it's so important. I mean, when I look around the room, I see, the mayor of Dublin, the city administrator of Hilliard. I know there are other communities here too. So many have been engaged in this. I want to go back to TSI though, because Curtis, I look around the room, I see a lot of engineers, I see a lot of planners, and so when I tell them, hey, we're going to do TSI, COTA, and MORPC, and LinkUS, and we're going to do TOD, it's going to be great, they know what I mean. But if you don't know what I mean, let me tell you what this means, because it's transformative what we're talking about. We're talking about, by 2030, $300 million being dedicated towards sidewalks, trails, ways to get to transit. That is incredible. That's about $60 million a year by our estimate. Our team and so many of the communities of the region have been working really diligently to identify projects. And just bear with me here. We have 300 projects that have been submitted. This could be 360 miles of paths and sidewalks by 2030. If you think about your own community, think about like a half a mile. Now make it 300 just in Dublin or Hilliard or Reynoldsburg or Whitehall or wherever. We're talking about a real transformative effort. And that's just the transit supportive infrastructure. That's not including the BRT, that's not including the expanded transit. This is a game changer.
We have time for one more question here. Monica, I'm going to give it to you. The use of articulated trolley buses is being considered by LinkUS. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think that's part of the high capacity, high transit, right? And so part of it is the dedicated lanes, the efficiencies that we build, the signal priorities, but part of that is capacity. And so when you think about light rail, it just has the capacity to have more seats and people standing. The articulated buses are very similar. So they are the closest thing in terms of vehicles. I have been in transit for many years, and we ran articulated in Texas and in Washington State. And I will tell you that every bus operator who I've ever worked with who drove an articulated bus said that they were easier to drive, because essentially what you're doing is you're driving two 30-foot vehicles. The back end always follows the front end. There's no extra piece to it. So it's actually harder for our operators and for us to get around the city currently with our 40-foot vehicles.
It's CMC's longstanding tradition to take audience questions, as everyone knows. We're going to move to questions from our live stream and in-person audiences in a few minutes. If you do have a question, please go ahead and make your way back over to the microphone. You can see Doug standing back there right now. If you're watching online, type your questions into the chat. Before we take audience questions, panelists, I do want to get into this whole aspect, because it's been mentioned a lot in the course of the conversation, and that's how all of this affects housing affordability, which is a huge issue, not only for this region, but the entire state. I'll start with you, Council.
Well, it will allow us, LinkUS, so if you fast forward or rewind back 10 years ago when I first got on council, we had all of us were doing planning processes. I'm looking at former Director Gallagher with Public Service. We had a 50-year projection. COTA had a 50-year projection. And then MORPC, we came together and did the corridor concepts. With the type of growth that we're having, we know when it's coming and truthfully where it will be. And so what LinkUS has allowed us to do is to bring all of those planning processes together and say that if we densify, if we build more housing along these areas and also build more infrastructure underground, so sewer and water and all those things, that we can actually put more people, I think it was 40 or 50% of the growth of the people on these corridors, so that it doesn't impact neighborhoods like the one we're in right now, where we can focus the growth in a way that is good for everybody, where it doesn't have the negative impacts of needing to be high growth in every neighborhood.
William, I'll let you add before we go to the audience.
No, I think housing is such a critical part of this. You know, next week we have noted planner Majora Carter coming to Columbus, and her tagline is, "You don't have to leave your neighborhood to live in a better one." And if you think about LinkUS, if you add housing, you add transit, you make it easier to walk around and get around, that can be so important to quality of life and making neighborhoods that are great, even better, making neighborhoods that need to lift up. Places that are even more better for the residents who live there. And what we've seen is we've seen communities like Columbus, Reynoldsburg, I shouldn't name communities, a lot of communities have done this, where they are looking at their zoning, making sure that housing along transit is something that can be done quickly so that our growth provides more options for people. When you think about the cost of housing, you just can't think about the cost of housing. You have to think about the cost to get to work and to get to stores and to get to childcare. Transit is a big part of that, and so LinkUS really tackles the housing problem.
Panel, thank you. Doug, we have some questions from the audience.
Curtis, thank you very much, and thank you to all of today's panelists. We are getting a lot of questions online. If you do have a question, please join us up here at the microphone, and please do keep in mind that great questions at CMC have two things in common. They take less than 30 seconds to ask, and they end with a question mark. So here is our first question from the online audience. Jacqueline Pasternak wants to know, is the ballot measure just for Columbus proper, or is it county-wide, and what exactly will the language be on the ballot?
The ballot measure is going to be countywide because we currently, it will be all of COTA service, which includes all of Franklin County, parts of Licking, Union, Delaware, and Fairfield counties. So it is countywide. What was the second part of that? The language in the ballot will be an increase of 0.5% to include LinkUS initiative that would include transit supportive infrastructure.
Good afternoon. My name is Jody Urbanski, and I'm with the Aubrey Affordable Housing Foundation. Many of the people that we serve work in one of the many warehouse jobs coming online here in Columbus. And their main barrier to getting those jobs and keeping them is getting those to the second and third shift on the buses. Is there going to be any work on expanding those routes in the future?
Thank you for that question. We are continuing, even now, to try to expand our services, not just to different areas, but also service hours, right? So I know pre-pandemic it was later. We had to scale back. Workforce challenges required us to pull some of that back, but it is we've recently moved to an 11 o'clock lineup, and we are shooting for a midnight lineup, and we will keep pushing to make it. We completely understand the second and third shift because we happen to have those internally, so we understand the need for that.
Online question? Another online question? Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add to that. Jody, thank you so much for the question because it's not just transit. So when we think about the workforce down at Rickenbacker, for years our communities have been working because even if they could when they could take the bus there, they would have to walk a mile to that warehouse. And sometimes it's snowing and sometimes it's dark. So there's been a dedicated effort to do that. LinkUS actually provides not just leisure trails, but that connection from transit to jobs so that we can provide dignity in a safer way for folks to get to those warehouse jobs.
Doug?
Thank you. Bob James asks, will LinkUS link us to the rest of the world, i.e. Port Columbus, the Convention Center, Amtrak, and intercity bus transportation?
Good question.
Maybe I'll start. Yes, a great question. Thank you for that. So LinkUS is just part of the mobility system that we're looking at. So I know that many of you know that MORPC and community partners, Columbus and others, have been working on restoring passenger rail to the region. Remember I said we're the largest region without mass transit? Well, we're also the largest region east of the Mississippi without passenger rail. That is something that is moving forward. We're looking at 2 routes. Those routes include the airport, those routes include downtown, and what's really important to today's discussion is they are done in concert with LinkUS. So when we add passenger rail, it connects into bus rapid transit and into the transit system. So we're really thinking comprehensively about how this works.
Monica, you have something you want to add to that?
Well, I would just say that, that was kind of one of the things I think the intercity and the passenger rail was kind of a shock, but I think we are working very closely with MORPC to make sure that when we do get passenger rail, because we will, how is that tied into service, right? We don't want passengers to get to a station and they don't have a means for moving. And so it can look a lot of different ways. Again, people move around a region in different ways, and we want to have all of those mobility options at that station.
We have another audience question.
Thank you. Stevie, you talked about folks at the lower end of the income spectrum, and I wanted to be clear that my question is not related to them. And William, you mentioned the amount of investment that was created in Cleveland along the trails or along the lines. Mayor Ginther was the only one in his opening remarks to use the word equitable. I want to know your thoughts on making sure that this is done in an equitable manner. And not just talking about the users, I'm talking about that investment and that wealth that will be created.
Yes, thank you, Lark, for that question. When I think about, this project has to have its base in equity. Every time that a community has done one of these big monumental initiatives, it always has come on the back of someone. I think about the Near East Side where my grandmother used to live on, and 71 came through and moved their whole entire community. And so we have to be as intentional about being equitable, about the impacts of this project as our forefathers were not thinking about the impacts of all of our residents. That truthfully is why when we thought about moving LinkUS forward, we didn't pick a route based off of just higher ridership. Because that would have been one of the high-income routes that went past OSU and all those. We're going to do that too because that's important. But we said first we need to go down East Main Street because we know that folks need access to jobs and healthcare and housing on Main Street. And so equity has been built into every component of LinkUS, all the way down to when we start to build this, making sure that folks get the jobs in our community to build it out. And so equity is the cornerstone of this project so that we are making sure that we're being intentional about who we are trying to impact.
Stevie, you have a quick follow-up?
Yeah, I would also say, again, like if we are looking at equity, what needs to happen is that everybody needs to work together to make sure that this happens. Some areas, some neighborhoods have more resources than others, and they can serve as blockers to building out that equity in different areas. So again, I would look at, if you're looking at the East Main corridor and it's going through Bexley and that is not a dedicated lane, it becomes less efficient. What about the areas east of that? Areas like Whitehall, like Reynoldsburg, that are doing so much to invest not only in that individual level, but in that economic level. Suddenly they're cut off by a part of the system that doesn't work quite as well as the rest of it does, right? It's still there, it still works technically, but we need involvement from everyone and we need dedication from everyone to make sure that equity is in fact equitable and spread throughout the region.
Doug?
Thank you. Monica, this might be a question for you. Trevin Flickinger asks, will COTA be announcing the next 2 corridors soon? Is East Broad still considered a future corridor?
Yeah, that work is currently underway. Again, we look for a lot of public feedback and engagement. So those will be announced soon, though, and I cannot say which ones will be selected as the next 2.
Another audience question.
I promise this is not a planted question, although, promise. But I do think that it's important because I think that as we talk about LinkUS, I was gonna make a connection to rail, so I'm happy we talked about that because literally the region is on the move with an airport expansion, strong conversations about Amtrak and bus rapid transit. But I want to bring us back to bus rapid transit. There are still folks in our community, in our residents, that every time we even talk about bus rapid transit, which is huge, right? People still say, why not light rail? Why are we not investing in light rail at this time? And so it is a little bit of a plant because I kind of know the answer to this question, but for folks who are watching and for this audience, I think we can do, William and Council President, why do we choose bus rapid transit as a way to address some of our both transit issues and address our housing issues as opposed to something like light rail?
Monica, this is something we were talking about before this whole thing started. What do you have to say?
Yeah. Thank you for that planted question. I do think it's an important conversation to have. Bus rapid transit works very similar to light rail. Why not light rail? Well, I'll tell you that it does cost about 1/6 the cost of light rail. So that's one. But the fact that it also requires an additional right-of-way should be something that we're considering, particularly when we continue to point to equitable. If we really want an equitable system, you really have to determine what's best for the community. And for the corridors that have been selected currently, that is BRT. And, again, it works very similar to light rail, so it's very fast, it's efficient, it's affordable for our region. I think that's kind of it.
Doug, we have one more question from online.
I was just to add to that real quick. If you want light rail, we need more density, which means we need more housing. If we want funding from the federal government to help support light rail at any point, we need more density. So right now, maybe Columbus is the 14th largest city in the country. In terms of density, it's sitting at somewhere around 250. It's not an efficient way to move people in a city that's not very dense. Now, we're working on that. So if we want light rail in the future, first of all, these BRT corridors give us the opportunity. We are already setting the groundwork to expand potentially. But also, if we are building more, if we are supporting the new zoning initiatives, if we are ensuring that there is enough housing for every person at every level in every neighborhood, then we'll get light rail.
Thank you for touching on that, Stevie. I just wanted to add, she's right about the density. Currently, we are going to leverage the funds to get federal funding for this. Currently, the corridors that are under design would not qualify for federal funding. So that's an important piece to keep in mind. For light rail, that's correct. For BRT, it does.
Doug, go ahead. We have one more.
Thank you. And we are getting lots of questions from the online audience. Marla Jones asks, how can we ensure that the community will be included in the decision-making processes?
Council?
I've been really proud of the outreach that has happened along the corridors over the last year and a half, where we have had stakeholder groups having those conversations, making sure that not just folks who maybe in the future will ride these BRT, but folks who are current riders have been a part of helping us plan this out. Now, this is the time now where we expand that conversation, make sure that everyone, regardless of where you live in Columbus, have that opportunity to be a part of the conversation. When we say that this is our community's top priority, it's going to be on all of us in this room to now become LinkUS ambassadors. We're going to need each and every one of you to go tell the story, to explain what the benefits of this is, but also we have to start talking about the impacts of not doing it. Like, there is another option of not doing it, and it will not stop the growth that will come. And so we will have to empower each of us, all of us, to be a part of this LinkUS ambassadors group to go out and tell that story, and then ask for input, ask for engagement. When we talk about the 2 other lines that are being planned, that is part of the engagement. We're having those conversations, trying to understand where folks need to be connected to jobs. How do we get connected to the airport? How do we get folks back and forth? So there is that opportunity right now in the planning process.
William, very quickly.
Yeah, the community voice is so important. The council president is right. There's been everything from visioning sessions along the corridors to ongoing comments. I have to say that our transportation leads here at MORPC, Parag and Maria, I know you're here, are going to every single community area commission in this region, talking about the future of these plans, getting that feedback from the community. We're doing additional meetings, additional outreach. We've done some online, we've done some with schools, we've done it with a survey with a major media partner. So this is something that the voice matters. It shapes the projects, whether it's BRT lines or whether it's the sidewalks and trails we're talking about.
We have time for one more audience question, or I'm sorry.
Yes, we have about 3 minutes for one final question.
You answered part of my question with what you just said about talking to people, but my name is Shannon. I'm with the Autistic Self-Reliance Support Network, and the Ohio Developmental Disabilities Council has done 2 reports since 2017 on accessible transportation for Ohioans with disabilities, and between the first report and the second, there was no progress. And my question is, as you're going out and talking to people in the community, how are you reaching people with Ohioans with disabilities? Because it's a major market for transit, but actually there are a lot of people who would use it who currently cannot.
Monica, I just want to talk about the access portion of her question first, in terms of access for disabilities, and then we'll get to the outreach to the disability community.
The access is part of what is being planned right now, right? And that's a lot of that is the transit infrastructure, supportive infrastructure that we keep discussing. The other piece of that is the outreach piece, and I'll let William touch on that a little bit, but we do have different stakeholder groups, which Council President Hardin referred to, referenced earlier, and one of those groups is co-chaired by our council member in the audience, Barroso de Padilla. That is our community stakeholder group. They are doing a great job in involving places like hospitals and nonprofits and different community partners and having that conversation about the different corridors, but also about what LinkUS looks like. So I advise you to get engaged there, but also we are always happy to come out and talk to people, whether it's hey, you want an informative type presentation, or you have questions for us. We have been very engaged even at a more like grassroots type conversation style. So I don't know if you want to add to that, William.
We are so proud of this effort because it puts accessibility at its core. When you think about this, we're not asking for one route. We're asking for multiple accessible routes that are connected by a whole system of sidewalks and trails. We can always do better. So that voice, that the issue you brought up is really important to make sure we're thinking even more comprehensively. But by design, this system is arm in arm, community and community, about how we can make our region more accessible to everybody, no matter how they need to get around.
I wish we had more time, everyone, but now I need to turn things over to Josh Harrison for some concluding remarks. Josh?
Wow, what a great forum. It is so obvious to me that the future of Columbus is bright, and I am comforted by the fact that we have very smart, engaged leaders thinking about this and how we can grow better. So I just want to personally thank all of you for this. I also want to thank the generous sponsors of today's forum, COTA, the Robert Weiler Company, and HNTB. Thank you to the Ellis for hosting us today. We're also grateful to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and to our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch, and our very special appreciation to today's speakers, Mayor Andrew Ginther, Council President Shannon Hardin, William Murdock, Stevie Pasamonte, and Monica Tellez-Fowler, and our host, Curtis Jackson. Please make plans now to attend next week's CMC Forum, where inspiration meets education, the Ron Clark Academy. And please note, next week's special forum will not take place here at the Ellis. Instead, it will be at the Grand Event Center in Grandview Yard. Thank you again, everyone. We could not do this without you. Have a great afternoon.